Yo, we are back. Today I have a special guest. His name is Michael Pietkiewicz. Hopefully I said his name correctly. If you see his
Yeah.
name spelled, it's who knows how to pronounce it. We had to talk for a few minutes on pronunciation, but I think I got it. He is coming at you. He's got a significant amount of experience in CrossFit, and I came across him on Instagram, and he's one of the few people who is actually willing to comment on my stuff and tell me if I'm wrong, which can be refreshing at times. I have a lot of people telling me I'm wrong or I'm stupid, but so many of them have no idea what they're talking about, and I could care less about their opinion. But someone like Michael, who knows what he's talking about, and when they tell me I'm wrong, I will gladly entertain their conversation. And it's been good. He's given me some unfiltered advice. He's posted some unfiltered things, which is a breath of fresh air. I enjoy hearing people's opinions when they're not tied to certain things. And he is not tied to anything. He will tell you the cold hard truth, how he sees it. And it's great. And that's why he's on here today. So, Michael, if you just want to give the listeners maybe a brief background on kind of your professional experience, coaching, training, and maybe a little bit on what you've done personally?
Sure, yeah. So I started working out when I was probably 9 years old, with a trainer, trained all through high school. Didn't go anywhere to play sports, but ended up playing rugby at Auburn, Auburn University. It's a club sport there. And then in 2012, I started training CrossFit. Someone was like, "Hey, you should come try this out. I think it's your thing." So I was like, "All right, I'll try it." From 2012 to 2019, I trained competitively for CrossFit as well as coached at a gym in Auburn, Alabama called CrossFit on the Plains. From 2019, I left CrossFit on the Plains and started my own sports performance facility in Auburn, Alabama called Fortify Fitness. I owned that for about 6 years, and I just recently sold it about 3 months ago before trying to pursue a different career path. So, yeah. On top of that, I think I was in CrossFit, placed 300th or something like that in the U.S. in the Open in 2019 was like my best finish, and then like 750th or something like that in the world in 2019. But it's been fun.
Yeah, you're a fit guy. I mean, anyone listening to this, go to his Instagram profile, and you'll figure out really quick that he's kind of a freak, and it's cool. But I mean, the main reason you're here is like I want to hear your thoughts on things. I mean, I don't care how fit someone is. It's just like, let's talk about it and we'll figure out what they know real quick. You know what you're talking about. So the first, like we had an interaction a couple of weeks ago when I wanted to set this up is I posted something and I don't even know what I think I was doing like leg recoveries or something. I was listening to like Lauren Landau, speed coach, talk about developing speed. And I was like, I should try this. So I was like holding on to a rig post and I posted on my story. I actually tweaked my hamstring from doing that because I hadn't done something like that in so long. So
Yeah.
I was just like trying to sprint with one leg, put it on my Instagram, and I don't even remember what I said. I was like trying to do some speed training, something. And we went back and forth a few times, and then you simply respond to me. You're like, it looks like I'm watching myself from 6 years ago, something along those lines.
Yeah,
And then
pretty
right
much.
then I was like, all right, I want to hear what he has to say in a longer format. So here it is. So like, what do you mean? All I was doing was training a fast twitch movement. And like, what do you mean? How was this used 6 years ago?
Okay, so like I said, I started training CrossFit 2012, 2013. In 2013, I did my first year of training, like 4 months into it. The owner of the gym was like, "Hey, we're doing this thing called Beach Brawl. You should come do it, Pensacola Beach Brawl." So I was like, "All right, why not? I'll send it." Signed up for the RX thing, had no idea what was going on with anything, like could barely do an overhead squat at this point, whatever. But one of the floater wads at that time was a CrossFit football, and it was actually a vertical jump. So two people beat me. I think it was Z.A. Anderson or his brother. That's an old name. I don't know if that's still even relevant in the CrossFit area. And then Elijah Muhammad, which if you've ever seen Easy Muhammad, he jumps pretty dang high. He played college basketball. But I jumped a 37.5-inch on a slapstick for a vertical. That was in 2012 or beginning of 2013, couple months into CrossFit. Fast forward 6 years, a guy that was training at our gym was a strength and conditioning coach for or assistant for Auburn, and he brought in a jump mat one day, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna crush this. My power clean is 70 pounds heavier from 2013. My back squat is like 70 pounds heavier as well. I was like, I am 20 pounds lighter. I'm gonna jump. I'm through the roof, right? I get on the mat and I jump to 30. And I was like, just absolutely blown away that despite being stronger, being lighter, like better at power cleans, whatever, that my vertical was down that much, which if you aren't familiar with vertical jumps, that's a large margin. It's a very big decrease. And so with that, when I realized that, I was like, wow, despite gaining all of this fitness, everything that I gained was just very general fitness. It wasn't specific to like, I guess, sports or anything like that. Like it didn't help me run faster, didn't help me jump higher. I tested my broad jump after that and it was down horrendously as well. And so good.
So you're saying, so in like whatever 2012-ish, you went to
Mhm.
one of your first CrossFit competitions and they had
Yep.
a vertical jump and you did pretty good.
Yep.
You didn't win, but
Yep.
you jumped 36, which is high. And then you went on this path of you were training CrossFit competitively pretty hard for many years. And you saw massive improvements to the understanding of our definitions of fitness. You got a little lighter, you
Correct.
put on some muscle, your lifts went up, and then 6 years later, you went to go test your vertical jump again, which is a pretty rudimentary test on just like
Mhm.
physical capabilities. So 6 years later, after training CrossFit, you came back to it and you jumped significantly worse,
Yeah,
large
30.
percentage worse.
Very, very, very bad.
So elaborate maybe a little bit on, so that 6-year gap when you were training CrossFit, that was
hmm
probably like the hardest years of your life that you were training
Yeah,
sport specific to CrossFit at the very least, right? Like
that
over
is a
those 6
good
years.
term. Correct.
So can you talk about what were you doing? Like you were just doing like normal Metcons, normal Olympic lifting. You were just in those 6 years, you were just trying to get better at the sport of CrossFit. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that is correct. So I started out, I mean, Taylor's oldest time. Started out in the gym doing their daily Metcons, did my first competition, was like, all right, I could get better. Then found at the time CrossFit Invictus was kind of like the big dogs on campus, right? So started working with Invictus with their programming, convinced a couple people in the gym to do it. But yeah, the goal was to be as good as possible at CrossFit for me at the time, right? I had no thought of it being, oh, this is going to make me worse at sport, better at sport. The goal was simply be good at CrossFit. Okay. And like I said, everything got better from my open score in 2012 to my last one in 2019. It improved every year. So by once, like you said, the terms of CrossFit and the goal of fitness, I did get better. It did work for all of that. But in terms of power output, explosiveness, things of that nature, I got worse.
I
But I
mean,
was doing
in those 6
during,
years, you were following some of the most prominent programs in the space at the time.
yeah. So I mean, I could tell you exactly. I'm pretty sure I can still remember everything. So like CJ over across Invictus, like if you've ever done an EMOM, you can pretty much thank Invictus for those. Wednesdays was known as just hell on earth. 30-minute EMOMs, every minute on minute for 30 minutes. You do some crazy crap. Then at the 30-minute marker, you do 2 rounds for time, and that was like every Wednesday until the open started or whatever, and it was horrible. But yeah, we're just doing traditional CrossFit. So yeah, Monday was a lift followed by an ollie lift, followed by a weight lift, front squat, followed by a metcon, followed by accessory that you either half did or half didn't do, and then you just repeat that until you get better or die.
You did traditional pure CrossFit. You were following something, or you were following Invictus. Someone's like CJ knows what he's doing. Like he's, for a long time, he was like one of the top guys in the sport in terms
Mm,
of like thinking about training. So it's not the fact that you weren't training correctly. The problem here is that what we're getting at is that there's something that is missing from CrossFit's methodology, and it might not be that. It might be the way we're training. And this is what I've talked to a lot of people about in these last couple of weeks, knowing this conversation was going to happen. Because this is probably the most important conversation, important podcast I'm going to put out yet, because there is an immense amount of truth to it. And every person I talk to about this is like, yeah, this is a problem. Because it's not necessarily missing from CrossFit, because like you said, you did it at Beach Brawl. There was a vertical jump. There was, I learned this the other day, back a long time ago, probably around that same time frame of Beach Brawl, at the CrossFit Games, I believe they had a broad jump or something. So it has been tested. Like, it's not like this has never been in the sport. But this is the thing. For you going on Invictus, for me, the way I've trained for the last many years, is these things don't come up. You don't get tested on a max vertical jump at the games. You don't get tested on a broad jump at local competitions for the most part. There might be a select few that do it like every few years, but this is not something that gets tested all the time. And it is present in the CrossFit methodology, sure, at like a very small sliver of time, but it's not something that's overwhelmingly present. And the reason that matters is because since it's not present, people like me and you, when we're trying to get better at the sport of CrossFit, we don't do them. Why would we do it if it's not going to get tested? And that's the problem, is that it needs to get tested more. And I guess the ultimate question is, why is it missing from competition? Why is things like, and it's not just a vertical jump. Why is a vertical jump missing? Why is a broad jump missing? Why are things like a pro agility test missing? Why is a 40-yard dash missing? Why are all of these raw tests of fitness, and what it is it would be I would classify it as relative strength output, right? Your own body weight in space. How well can you? These are gone. These are absolutely gone. They're not in the space. They're not getting tested at all. And sure, some CrossFit training programs might do them a little bit, but myself, I don't put a lot of effort, at least in the last 7 or 8 years, towards doing them because I'm not going to get tested. So why do you think they're not in competition? What's caused this to happen?
So when I started training, die hard for CrossFit, 3 sessions a day, I was pretty much the only one at my gym doing that for a little bit. And I got thrown into a 8-foot by 8-foot box that was like, hey, you can do your stuff here, but the rest of the gym is for paying customers, right? I mean, I've paid as well, but I think a lot of it boils down to this. CrossFit as a whole, the people you see competing is 2% of the entire population that does CrossFit, right? Trying to program those specific qualities for a group class is not doable, and so it won't be done, or it is doable and people will get pissed at it and not show up, and then owners who want high revenue will be like, it's my worst day, you're out of there, despite it being beneficial to the person, right? I got to program for my gym, the gym I worked for 1 week one time when the owner was out of town, and I programmed a workout, and it was 2 sets, 5 rounds, 10 seconds, all out sprint on the assault bike, rest 2.5 minutes. After your 5th round, you rest 6 minutes, and then you do it again. And that was the entire workout for the whole day. No one showed up. And I got a text from the owner saying, you can't program like that again because no one showed up. You have to add in abs or a lift or something fun to get there. I'm like, why? It's like, it's good for them. It's just hard. It's not what people want, though. They don't want that sort of they want high effort, not high intensity. So they want like the long, sluggish, I'm going to sweat and grind and die. And it's like, or you could just do bike sprints for a little bit. But I think the reason they're not seen is because it's hard to program as a whole for the general population of CrossFit because no one wants to do that. So it won't trickle up or down into the competitions anywhere else because it's hard to train for the actual event in a general class setting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair take. I think we do, to some extent, train that, like, if you're just talking about intensity, like the highest ends of intensity. I'm not, like, I think CrossFit in general doesn't do a absolute horrible job. Like, when I say CrossFit in general, I'm saying the training programs, people like me, people who write workouts, don't do a horrible job programming the top end capacity, meaning.
So this will be my argument to that. If you got on a bike right now and ripped it as hard as you possibly could, your top RPM is your 100%, right? How often would you hit your 95% in a workout? So if
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So you're not actually training intensity. Intensity is anything that's going to be 95% and higher within a sprint or a jump. So if you're not above a 95% of your best in a sprint, which is you're actually decreasing speed, once you get towards 80 meters or whatever, you're no longer training high intensity. So when I was training kids, if their sprint times for that day were lower than 95% of their best, cut, check, we're going low tempo work. We're not even training speed today because you're not training speed or intensity that day. It's like that is what every book says, what every just nice. And so that's what I think is a confusing point is you can feel like you're trying really hard, but your numbers don't back it up that you're actually trying very hard because you can only keep 100% for a very short amount of time. So if you asked on a thruster burpee workout, hey, do 10 thrusters and 10 burpees as fast as you possibly could, and then go do 6 rounds of that same number, 10 and 10, your rounds would look significantly different than just one round. And that is the
Absolutely.
difference between intensity and high effort.
I mean, yeah, you're 100% right. The gap in our space in terms of that 95 to 100% it's no doubt it's there. I agree with that and I acknowledge that. I mean, the only way we definitely don't produce force on machines that to that degree. You're right. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that. But I would say we do express higher capabilities, and that's all machines, that's all absolute,
Mm-hmm.
right, that's not your own
Yep.
body weight in space. I could say the same thing with a barbell, but a lot of times CrossFitters do lift to that 95 to 100% with a barbell, but again, that's all absolute output. My
Mm-hmm.
concern, and I think the void, comes from relative output. We're not doing it with our own body weight, and which what you were saying, which is very accurate, is that doing relative output testing in a class, and you're saying is that why it's become more or less absent in training programs is that it's hard to program for people in the general population. And I've talked about this before in this podcast. It's right. It's like getting a class to do plyometrics and get them to buy into it for people that can't jump, people to do pro agility stuff, people to do very fast lateral movement. It's hard. The nature of it is it could be kind of dangerous. And because there's a lot of people that I've said this before is the most basic form of plyometrics is running. And
Yeah,
there's people at
sprinting.
every class. There's people in every class, and which is completely fine. They can't run because they have
Yeah.
something going on with their knee. And I think your take that it's hard to program these movements, these relative fast, super intense movements, plyometrics, sprinting, jumping, all this stuff, because it's not accessible, is definitely, there's truth to that. But there's also truth in programming ring muscle ups,
Well,
programming handstand walk.
when I say non-accessible, it's very accessible. I would say not profitable would be the better word. Because like I said, from a pure standpoint of an owner looking at a gym, so let's take a sprint day, right? If I was taking a class through a proper sprint day, this is what it would look like. Class starts at 8, right? 8 o'clock. All right, whiteboard. Here's our warm up today. Here's what we're doing today. Talk about whatever. It's 8:05 now, right? We're going out to the parking lot. We're doing a 15-minute general warm up to get the body prepared. So we do 15 minutes general warm up. So it's 8:20, right? We do 10 minutes of sprint mechanic drills or sprint drills, all right? It's 8:30. We have 30 minutes left now to do sprints. Anytime you sprint for 10 yards, you're supposed to rest 1 minute per yard. So say we wanted to do 5 sets of a 40-yard dash, 5 sets, 40-yard dash, right? You're resting 4 minutes between each set. So now you're at 20 minutes in, you're at 8:50. Now you do a cool down for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then everyone goes around their way. That is the entirety of a sprint workout. And I do that workout every Saturday, and it leaves you dusted and crushed. But people don't know how to perform at a high level. So the workout is void for them almost, or they don't feel like they do enough. And so that sort of workout won't work in a general fitness class because people don't know how to handle that style of working out.
That's a fair take. It's not profitable because it's not an attractive class people want to go to. It's not
Correct.
attractive because people don't understand the benefits of doing that. And that comes down to the coach. That comes down to me at my gym. If I can't convince my members to buy into what I'm doing, I failed. And that's something that's so hard that it's hard to do. Like to get people to buy in. I mean, that's
Very.
why I'm having this conversation, is that talking to people like you and hearing your opinion, that I think that's what the hardest part is to do, is to get people to buy into what you're saying, that a workout doing 4 40-yard sprints, when those are your only working sets, you can get tremendously fit from that. And if that's all you do that day, but you got to get people to buy into what you're telling them. And that's extremely hard to do.
It is. And like, the the difficult side of it is, like you said, the buy-in, but even the more difficult side of it is explaining to the people who can't run or can't sprint, hey, we're going to start on you're doing the same thing, but you're just going to barely jog. And then you're going to, slowly increase from there. Now, every time I'd program sprints for my gym, right, it would be a non-negotiable. Hey, we're starting our sprint cycle. We start with hills. Hills are just easier on the hamstrings. And every time I would look at every single guy in the class, I had like firefighters and Air Force people. I'd be like, do not sprint as hard as you can. Do not. Like, don't even try it. Like, yes, someone might be faster. Don't even go for it, right? Like, I had a lady who ran marathons all the time. All of them would pull their hamstring because they would not want to just like start jogging up a hill, right? And like you said, I don't think people realize how potent like a sprint is if it's done well and effectively for a form of exercise. And like I said, if people learned how to like slowly get into sprinting in the class setting, or like, hey, for the next 10 weeks, we're going to do a sprint progression on, Wednesdays, and then do a little longer distance jogs on Fridays to actually get their hamstrings prepared for it, then sprinting would be more accessible. But it just takes a lot of time to get back into sprinting when you haven't done it in forever.
So we've laid out very fair, reasonable arguments for why this high output relative testing, sprinting, jumping, intense plyometric pro agility, why it might not be present in a general population class setting. And I think that's fair. Like CrossFit not programming that for the masses is fair. It's hard to do. But what's I still don't understand is that I want to hear your opinion is, why is it not in competition? Why is it not in competition? What's going on?
I've said this for a while now. I think a 40-yard dash, there's so many different things that could get involved with sponsoring CrossFit right now, like OVR, sports performance. Like they could get in with CrossFit and they could do the true 40 testing that they do. Have you heard of a thing called Apex? I'm sure you have.
Yes.
Okay.
Why are competitions not programming these relative outputs? Why has this been absent for a decade, since Beach Brawl in the CrossFit Games a decade and a half ago? Why?
I mean, it could be like people don't like to view it. It's boring. I mean, it's like I said, it's
Is
not
it though? I don't
think it is, but a lot of people just don't want to watch people run.
No,
so
everyone would love watching Guy or Vellner run a 40-yard dash. That would be epic, dude. Epic.
I think it was the last time they did this in the games was with Dan Bailey. I just remember him like winning it. I think he won it, and like it was like a 50-yard dash, a cut around a pylon, and then the sprint back, right? And I forget who won it, but like that was the last time they did a pure sprint related event in CrossFit. Like you said earlier, there's the huge gap in CrossFit's methodology is when you go to CrossFit L1, there are like 3 metabolic pathways or whatever. And the first one is anything longer than 10 seconds, you can't do that one for their phosphagen pathway or whatever. And so there's no event in CrossFit that is less than 10 seconds, right? Like, sure, you can say the 1 rep max clean and jerk or whatever is less than 10 seconds. That's fine. But once again, speaking strictly from a sprinting, jumping, L drill, pro agility, like 5-10-5, like all those things, none of them are even thought about. And I'm not sure why. I don't know, but I feel like they're missing an entire component when they are doing their whole games test by not incorporating some form of jumping and sprinting and agility.
I mean, you said it perfectly. Do they test the phosphagen system? Some.
Yeah.
Sure, with absolute power output, with maybe lifting a barbell. That might check that. I would say that checks the box a lot of times to some degree. But that's one way to test it. one way.
Correct. I mean, like, the force velocity curve. So like they're just testing the force up here, up here, like the 1 rep max force output over here, where the velocity output down here gets completely ignored. So yeah, I really would love for them to see it. I haven't been in CrossFit in 6 years. I follow it, I keep up with people. I actually tell my friends it's making me laugh seeing a lot of the ex athletes get into more sprinting stuff, like Fikowski and his training and what he's trying to do. But even then, like, you can kind of see his is very hard to separate CrossFit from pure sport performance training, because he's still trying to turn everything into super fast, low rest, and all that stuff when the rest is important. But yeah, I think they should test that. I don't know why they don't. For that level of an athlete, I mean, everyone there can do all those things, you would hope. If not, then I don't know. Maybe it's like the 2012 softball thing where they're afraid of being exposed and realizing some of their athletes aren't actually athletic. I don't know if you know about that whole debacle at CrossFit Games when they made everyone throw a softball
Yeah.
and it was
I mean,
horrible.
that argument would be it's too skill related, which is fair. I'm sorry, a broad jump,
Yeah,
a vertical jump, that
yeah,
argument doesn't work. I'm
yeah.
like to
No,
the point, and you said the story with Dan Bailey and like the zigzag hurdle sprint. That was
yeah,
that was fairly. I'm almost positive that was longer than 10 seconds. My
yeah.
grievance, as clear as I could put it, why are there not any relative strength testing under 5 seconds? Give me a broad jump, give me a vertical jump. And for the longest time, I didn't care because I benefited from this. I'm bigger,
Hmm.
I like lifting, I do better. Like, why would I get on here and make this message if I might slightly influence competitions to program something I'm bad at? I didn't care to do it. But now I'm like not as invested in CrossFit, and I'm trying these things that like I'm like, let me see how bad I am at broad jumps because I haven't done them in 8 years. And I'm terrible. So I've been doing some broad jumps, and then it just made me start thinking, I'm like, why are we not doing this? It's cheap. It's easy to judge. Like, there's no box. I don't know. We've hit the hand. Like, I don't know. Hopefully people watch this video and can come at me with some argument on why we're not doing sprint testing, agility chest testing, jump tests. Like, in my opinion and estimation and understanding of fitness, there should be one of these tests at every competition. I want to see how
I
high you
agree.
can. I want to see how strong you are relative to your own body. Show me how high you can jump, how far you can jump, or how fast you can run in like 6 seconds.
Yeah,
It should be
I
there.
would agree.
It should.
Yeah,
Why
and I
why would
think
it not?
the one thing I will say to this, and like I said, I like to give credit when credit's due. I went back to my old CrossFit gym probably like 5 months ago. I was training for beach brawl, ended up messing up my shoulder again, surprise, and then how to get out of it. But the workout they were doing that day was actually deadlift sets paired with triple broad jumps, and it was from Mayhem's programming, and I thought that was very interesting. I was like shocked that a triple broad jump was being programmed in a CrossFit gym. But that was, like I said, it was Mayhem's programming, so maybe people are starting to catch on to it a little bit more, that there needs to be that sort of output tested and put into the programming. So, but I would definitely like to see it added into the competition level, because one, it gives you a pretty good indicator. I mean, I think who was it Gerard, or however, is it Gerard? Is that how you say his
Ricky,
last name? Ricky.
Ricky Garard.
Ricky posted a video of his 100-meter dash a very long time ago. I say a very long time ago, within a year probably. And it was like an 11.3, 11.4, right? That's not even good for regionals in high school, right? And so it's like, if you are the fittest person on earth and you're running as 11.3, 11.4, there should probably be some more work to be done in that domain. And I think he posted 11.3, 11.4, and then someone like frame by framed it, and it was actually like an 11.6 or something like that. Uh, but point being, like, it's an area that doesn't get hit often by a lot of these athletes, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing is it's like it's not that it's entirely gone because like I said, it was tested at the games. It's been kind
Mhm.
of tested like only a couple times over the years, but I feel like these last many years it's just been completely gone. And that's why I'm talking about this to hopefully
Yeah.
influence this a little bit. So when I was like I've been doing this a lot and I've been like listening to some speed coaches talk, and you probably know a lot more about this than me because this is like all new to me. And when I hear them talk, so much of this force production in these settings, the
Mm,
way it's loaded on your body is
mm,
very different than the way we train our body in a CrossFit gym. In a normal CrossFit gym, doing traditional programming, like programming I write, I'm part of the problem, is it's all loaded with a flat foot being with force being produced from your heel and the front of your foot kind of simultaneously. But when you go to jumping, when you go to sprinting, all these agility drills, that shifts to the front of your foot. All the force is being produced from the front of your foot. And this is the problem. If we're going to try and be we as in CrossFit is going to try and be a GPP program, a general physical preparedness program. And we are only training force production mainly from a flat foot, heel and front of your foot driven. Something's wrong because in nature, when you go to run, you're going to produce force from the front of your foot. When you're picking a log up off the ground in the woods, a lot of weight's going to be on the front of your foot, front of your foot, front of your foot, front of your foot. And this is something I'm getting at. I like figured this out
yeah.
like a month ago, and I was just mind blown that we don't do enough forefoot loading.
I was laughing because I posted the story of my shoe when it's like completely
I saw
worn
that. That was
down
cool.
at the toe. Like there's just no tread left anywhere, but the whole foot is completely there. And you like that. And I was like, it's a random picture for him to like, but I think it was because of this thought you had that kind of fed into that. For the you're touching on a point here where like so CrossFit level one, the very first thing they tell you is keep all the weight in your heels. I don't know if you've taken your level one, but squat, wiggle your toes, deadlift, wiggle your toes, do this, wiggle your toes. Like it's all keep everything in your heels. And so I think that I mean you're right with sprinting, like you have to stay in the forefoot. I mean if you look at track spikes, spikes are only on the front of the spike. There's nothing on the heel. For like distance, I think there's spikes all around, but for sprinting and specifically, there's only spikes on the front of it. And I think in terms of training the forefoot, I don't do anything crazy specific to be like, oh, I'm training this aspect. I do a lot of super heavy calf holds, like calf raise holds, and super heavy calf raises in general on machines in like a Globo gym. But besides that, like just doing jumps themselves, like broad jumps. Like I'm sure, like when you did broad jumps the other day, was that your first time doing broad jumps in a very long time?
While measuring it, yes.
Okay. So like if you go back and you do triple broad, so 3 broad jumps directly in a row without stopping, right? And you did like 5 sets, 6 sets, I promise you, like your ankles and calves would be wrecked probably the next day. I say promise you, but you probably have a lot of volume. And I saw like you snowboard and everything, so like you're probably gonna be maybe okay. But that's how you train the forefoot and stuff like that, is by doing a bunch of jumps and flyouts and things of that nature. There's no like floating heel exercise while squatting that I believe in or anything like that. I think it's strictly by doing the thing, you'll get stronger at the thing. And so by jumping regularly, right? Like not just, oh, I'm gonna jump 5 times, 5 sets of 1 broad jump on a Monday, right? But by jumping multiple times a week, by sprinting, 2 times a week, by doing tempo runs, like, 1 time a week, like those things are going to make that structure better overall. Yeah, so I don't really believe in a super specific. I know right now on social media and my mind of things, heel elevated split squat while holding whatever is crazy popular, right? Just an isometric for like 2 minutes. And it's like a good exercise, but like it's not going to be a sub. Like if you did that for a year straight and didn't jump, it's not going to get you ready for jumping. Jumping will get you ready for jumping. And so you have to use it in like conjunction with it. But I say all that to say, like the forefoot is important, but by just doing those exercises that involve it will be the best thing to train it.
Yeah, that was a
That's
clean
for me.
answer.
That's for me. That's for me personally.
It's a clean answer. I'm just trying to get at, like, I'm giving the biomechanical argument for why it's important. Producing force at the front of your foot is important. And you're just saying, just do the exercises that load it, that are
Yeah.
most naturally loaded. You're just saying, jump, sprint, just do those exercises. And you're saying,
Yeah.
trying to find a way around that is not very logical. Just do the
No,
exercises that load it the best, most naturally, most functionally, and that's the
yeah.
best. Trying to do these heel floated exercises and trying to train this system, beating around the bush is not very effective, is what you're saying, compared to
No,
just doing them.
well, all those exercises are being posted to be used in conjunction with actually sprinting and jumping. So it's not like this replaces this. Like a floating heel, lunge, hold, whatever it's called, does not replace broad jumps, does not replace hurdle hops, does not replace sprinting, right? You can do that in conjunction with doing all those things and you'll get a good result as well. But if you're just going to be like, oh, we need to, it's really beneficial that the forefoot is being worked. So we'll start doing these holds, but you don't add in any jumps on top of it. It won't do you any good because it won't prepare you for jumping anymore at all. It'll just prepare you to hold an isometric Michael Jackson style.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I'm just trying to get at the importance of producing force on the front of your foot. And I think we hit that hard enough. So the next thing I want to talk about, I haven't talked about this on this podcast yet, and I figured this would be a good episode to talk about it since we're kind of talking about, I guess, controversial things, is the whole idea of GPP, just general physical preparedness. It's like one of the hottest. It's still the hottest term. I feel like it's been such a hot term for so long, and
So hot right now.
I just hate the term GPP. I feel like the idea of, first the idea of trying to, and it might be because people don't understand what it is, and I'm like trying to look at it too deeply. Is GPP the idea of being broadly prepared for everything? Because like as soon as I hear that you're like trying to prepare for everything, you're preparing for nothing. That's what goes through in my head. So trying to prepare for like everything simultaneously without like any specialization towards a task. That's why like when I was competing in CrossFit, like you could say it was random, but it really wasn't. Like I knew the paces I was trying to do. It wasn't random at all. The training I was doing, it wasn't random. It wasn't GPP.
Before every competition I would do or open I would open an Excel sheet, list out every single movement for the open. I would go back and check off all the movements that appeared the most often and then the movements that appeared the least. And the movements that appeared the least got the least amount of attention, where the movements that appeared. So it's like, you're right. I mean, it's not random. Like you can game the system, and like if you practice double unders, wall balls, toes to bar, thrusters, burpees, rowing, and chest to bar and muscle ups, you will destroy the open if you just get really good at all those, right? Like,
in an 8 to 12 minute time domain. There you go.
Yeah. I meant to hit on this earlier about like the different pathways. What time cap first? Like once again, I still follow CrossFit. Time cap first workout was 12 minutes, right?
This year,
yeah. 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And then 16 minutes, right? I think the second one, and then like 16 minutes the last one. So literally just the same time domain for, unless you were the elite woman that finished it in like 9 minutes in the first one, like all the same thing every single time. But getting off topic there.
GPP. Just like the idea of trying to chase this. The whole idea of trying to be ready for anything is just like, it just seems fraudulent to me. And here's why. The whole term GPP, I'm fairly sure, came from some Russian sports scientist. And they would do GPP, general physical preparedness, before they did specific sport training. It came before. So that's what they did. They laid the pyramid and then they did specific stuff. And it's just like, even trying to do everything, like even if you're planning out a training cycle, like if you're doing a 4-week training cycle, you're going to pick your battles and you're going to pick the things and modalities you want to get better at. So just like in my head, GPP is just like, we're all trying to chase a ghost that doesn't know exists, because the amount of things that our body is capable of and the systems we have in place, like you can't train all of them simultaneously. And I think the notion of having that CrossFit has is correct in terms of trying to have like a balanced approach, trying to touch on all the skills and qualities we have. I think that's like a good, I guess, North Star to chase. I just like the application of it. it's just I just don't see GPP as like we're trying to chase a ghost that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It just rings in my head, and I don't know, and I don't like it.
So for what CrossFit is in the general fitness domain, it does a very good job of checking a lot of boxes, right? Like you can't deny that. Without like someone going to a CrossFit gym and placing 50th percentile, 60th percentile in the open is probably capable of doing more things, like more fluent in things than someone that like just goes barely goes to a Globo gym, right? In terms of like the stuff they can do,
For
like
sure.
gymnastics, cartwheels, like hollow holds, like that sort of thing. They're exposed to more. But like so GPP for me is saying that like I said, like CrossFit does a great job of it. I think it's very important for people to get a very wide base of GPP. I mean, that is the most important thing to do. A lot of the times when people term sport specific stuff like that, to me, it's not applicable to a very large part of the population. Like I said, my current vertical jump is like 37.8 on a jump mat. I've topped out at like 23.9 miles per hour, which is like a laser timed low 4.4, high 4.3 40-yard dash. And I still train GPP. I don't do any specific exercises to improve sprint domains. I still full back squat. I mix in box squats occasionally, but I don't do like weighted release squats or anything like that. And so like it's super important to do GPP, and I think it'll allow people to hit the markers they want to mark without having to go into super high sports specific stuff. Because a lot of people who are going to be listening to this podcast, and this is going to offend a lot of people who are listening to this podcast aren't that great top tier athletes that they want to be. Like the Russians, they developed this system of like specificity for Olympic athletes, right? Like not for the guy who's just trying to get better at a 40-yard dash who wants to go from a 5.2 to like a 4.9, right? If you just sprinted more often and probably squatted a little lower, you'll probably get better at that. The crazy specific exercises are for those guys that have truly squeezed everything they had to out of these most basic principles, and now they have to add some crazy crap in order to evolve into something more. So while you don't like, GPP or the term, not that you don't like it, the term, trying to get better at everything, I think it's important to have, like I said, that huge base. And then I guess if you want to say specificity, work the more specifics, you know, taking away endurance training. Like I'm not going to go run a 5K anytime soon because I like to sprint, like it's just things like that. I don't know if that's kind of what you're getting at with your question.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like I feel like I just don't understand. I don't know. I don't know if I just don't understand GPP enough. It's just like I said, like at the beginning, it's like I just feel like it's kind of a ghost. Like
Okay.
we're trying to like
So
wrap our hands around something that so like me planning out a 4-week cycle with like specific focus points that I'm trying to get better at A, B, and C. Is that GPP? I
trying
just
to
don't
think of,
know. I just have a very hard time
yeah, yeah,
of
yeah, I'm trying to think
understanding
of like a
what
good,
GPP is.
yeah, yeah.
And like listen to, I just don't know. I don't know.
So basically how I structure my blocks of training for people, right? If an athlete is coming off their sport, they will go into a 5 to 6 week GPP block, right? Meaning the main training goal is getting them back into training, back into their body moving, back into exploring some potential different movement patterns they're not used to try to get them more, exposure to different areas and movements, but really just getting overall tissue and body ready for more specific work, right? What happens is people will, for you specifically, right, as a high level athlete like yourself in CrossFit, you will try to raise multiple qualities at once. So your Olympic lifts need to get better, your rowing needs to get better, your gymnastics need to get better, and you also need to get better at I don't know, what's another CrossFit
Handstand push-ups.
handstand push-ups, right? So your upper body strength. You can't dedicate enough time to raise 5 different qualities to the degree that you want them to. You could for a little bit, but it would go up really slow. Unless, we talked about this before in Instagram, unless you're untrained, then you will skyrocket all of those abilities for the first 2 years, right? So when you first join CrossFit and you are getting exposed to everything for the first time, everything's going to go up. So that is your GPP phase, right? You are getting exposed to everything. Everything is raising at a very good rate. Then you become a trained athlete, and now all of a sudden doing squats once a week in conjunction with doing 50, 55-pound thrusters is no longer gaining leg strength, right? Because you're only squatting once a week. A 55-pound thruster is literally the smallest percentage of your squat max ever. So you're no longer gaining strength. So now you have to move on to a squat cycle. So someone's going to be like, every CrossFit gym does like Windler or Smolov or Hatch, or like someone will dabble into one of those things eventually. And then their squat strength goes up, right? And then that just kind of cycles through. So you have this like long-term phase of I'm doing generalized training until I have to do something more specific where something else has to give in order to increase the quality I want. But you can do that over a whole year, and like vertical integration, where if I have 4 blocks and I'm going to do, strength, but I'm still going to keep a small dose of plyometrics, sprinting, and then also skill work or something.
Yeah.
And then the next block, your skill work's going to be up here, and then the strength is going to go down. And then, you just kind of do it like that way. So it kind of slowly raises. For the average person that attends a group fitness class, GPP will always be good enough. Then that is rough to say, but from coaching for
I see what
13
you're saying.
years, GPP will be good enough to always be in that generalized state, and they'll always be content with that. The people that want more, congratulations, you just found your next CrossFit competitive athletes that will go out and find their own programming.
I see what you're saying. That was pretty well said, but I have a question off this still. So, I mean,
Sure.
the reason that I think this matters so much is because I think CrossFit, I would argue, in its purest form, should try and be a model of GPP or whatever this GPP is that I'm trying to understand, and I still don't get it. So here's my question, and I think you were right. Doing this like broad blanket approach works for so many people for a long time, right? Like you can see progress for a long time, for your first several years of training, just doing this like wide dose of skills and qualities to train. But here's where I start to get confused. So like you kind of just made the distinction from general population, and then as your training age matures, progress does slow, right? And then that's at the point where you might be classified as a competitor if you might need more specialization to increase, right? So then this is a question I think about all the time when I'm like programming for my gym is, so if I do a certain squat cycle for 8 weeks that is fairly specialized to increasing your 1 rep max, but it's going to produce phenomenal results, not too GPP because we're dialed in to the intent of increasing your 1 rep max. And I give my gym the same thing. And I'm like, this is not GPP. Like if I'm like being super specific about this, and that might be wrong. Maybe I'm doing it wrong for trying to do that, but I just think in my head a lot of times I'm like, why should I not give them something that I know will elicit a stronger response to the end quality if that was a 1 rep max? If I know it's going to be a stronger response and they're going to get closer to the goal I'm saying I want them to get to, why should I not give them that more specific approach? Because am I hurting other qualities at that point by doing that?
Yeah,
Like, is that the trade-off?
that is the trade-off. So by pouring so heavily into a strength quality, something will have to give somewhere else in your programming, whether that is, hey, I don't know if you do like heart rate monitors in your gym or whatever, but like, yeah. So if you're training strength qualities and then you're still trying to do conditioning as well, like you're once a week touching into a I'm laying on the floor dying phase versus every day, right? Or something like that, where like if you're pushing this up here and you're trying to keep this up here as well, now you're getting into something called survivorship bias, where your top athlete will survive and you'll be like, look at him, and then everyone else is dead. because they didn't make it, or they quit, or they got injured, or something didn't work, right? And so by pushing that so high, you have to give something else along the way. And that might look like say you squat on Monday, right? Say you squat Monday and Thursday or something for your squat cycle or whatever it was, right? That looks like, hey, on Tuesday, we're doing, some sort of upper based focused Metcon where you're not crushing your legs. And then Wednesday looks like a super low intensity row combined with some stretching. And then you're squatting again on Thursday. And then you have another upper focused gymnastic skill work Friday. But the people, once again, this goes back to earlier, people won't show up for Wednesday if they're not dying. Like, they just won't do it unless they believe you. Like, they just won't show up for an easy 30-minute row and stretch. Despite it being truly better for their person, they won't want that at all. They'll either show up, try to do their own thing, or show up and try to PR on their on their row. They just won't sit there and lollygag row. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You have to trade off. If you're raising everything at the same time, you're a novice. Like, you're new to it, and that's why you're able to do it. But if you are specifically trying to get, but it's dangerous to a degree if you're trying to max out all qualities. So if you're trying to get better at it, one quality will take more importance over the others for a short period of time. At least that's what I would focus on.
Every time I see GPP, I'm like, I want a great explanation on what this is, and I don't know. But I want to talk about, you spend a significant amount of time inside an affiliate training everyday people, and I train everyday people every day. And it's interesting to me. Like, I would like to hear other people's opinion on what they're doing. So I guess the first, broad question would be, if there was like one big issue that you saw in training people in the affiliate, and it could be anything, like super open-ended, like what was like the biggest issue you had of training people in a class setting in an affiliate? Like, what could have been done better? If you have anything. I could ask a more specific question.
Man, no, I'm just trying to go through everything.
Here's one. Okay. Why do so many people seem to get burned out of CrossFit? Like, there's people who will do CrossFit and then maybe they tweak something and then they move on. Or maybe it's hard. I don't know. It's just, I feel like it's a fair statement to say that there's a good amount of people out there that have gotten burned out on CrossFit. And I guess the question would be, why do people get burned out on CrossFit?
Saw two things I saw, and I guess they're kind of related to burnout, right? Would be a yo-yo effect, meaning I would watch people get in shape from, I'm sorry if you do this, I don't mean to, I have no idea what your gym does, get in shape from a 30-day challenge, fall off the wagon from after the 30-day challenge, train super hard for Murph during their next 30-day challenge, and then there would constantly just be a up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down, and they eventually just couldn't do it anymore, right? And they would just be done because they were rooted in challenges and not rooted in just showing up and doing the work, right? They needed more external validation via challenge than just coming to the gym and doing the work. The second reason that I think burnout is very much a thing in CrossFit is that the programming it's very difficult to program for an entire gym, right? If you have Michael that shows up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, versus you have Susie that comes on Monday and Friday, and then you have John that shows up twice a week the first week and then is out of town the next week and then shows up again. How do you program for the person that shows up every day, a good structure, versus the person that shows up once a day or once a week versus the person that shows up twice a week, doesn't come the next week, and twice a week? Because you have Michael, who you could easily program for. High intensity this day, low intensity this day, strength this day, very low this day, or even rest day, like this day. Then, but what happens is Michael, the consistent person, kind of gets thrown to the side, and then you just get, you're going to die today, you're going to die tomorrow, you're going to die the next day, and every day turns into a massive high intensity day within every affiliate for the most part. That is what I see, is that the competitive factor and the intensity factor is cranked up too high too often for far too long, and eventually people will just slowly peter out or end up breaking and just slowly fizzling out from it. That's that's how I view it as.
I think that's pretty accurate. This is gonna be a topic I'm gonna talk in deep, pretty deeply in a couple weeks here with a guest. But I wanted to hear your take. I mean, I think your last sentence was perfect. I think it was. I agree with your last sentence that more or less it's too competitive and it's too intense too often. Would be
Mm-hmm.
right the gist of what you said, and I think that's generally my take. Is I lean towards on the side like maybe we can bring the intensity down a little bit and still get great progress. And this is something I posted a story about this that it's the dose of fitness that is incorrect. And there's a lot of people out there, generally the people who are trained by CrossFit, like the L4s, will just make the blanket statement that volume is the issue. And you can't just
Mm-hmm.
like there's too much nuance to this just to be like it's volume, 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 volume. It's just like stop, stop. There's like you can't just make that statement. It's volume with intensity. Like if you just had like a little piece every day that was intense, like a max L
Mm-hmm.
sit hold or a max
Yeah,
brow jump, and that's all you did, or 4x400s. At that point,
yeah,
volume would be super low, intensity would be super high, and that's what CrossFit. That's the model CrossFit tried to do. The
yeah.
problem with that though is well, your point earlier is that the profitability element of doing that is it's just not very attractive to have Sally, who's a mom who's 45 years old, show up to a class and have her do a max L sit hold. It's just hard to make that sustainable and hard to have people buy into that. So that's why this model that I believe is just better, and I believe most big programs follow this model to some extent of higher volume. I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
programs have higher volume, which I do believe is the side of the fence I lean on. But I still think there's a big disconnect in our space with the intensity side of it that you mentioned. Is I think right now in our space, our volume's high, but our intensity's high too. And you can't have
Yeah,
both of those high. I literally just posted something. I'm like, you can't
yeah.
have best of both worlds. If volume's
And
gonna go up, you
I'm gonna
have to
stop.
bring intensity down.
So I'm gonna stop you right there. You just described your own issue with GPP in your own words. Volume is high, intensity is high. You can't train both qualities, right? So being more specific
Sure.
in one, more specific in the other. So same sort of issue, right? Like you can't do both. I mean, you can, but like one would suffer, right? But that's what CrossFit's all about. Like not making them suffer, but making them just middle of the road. Like they're not about making it like obviously some athletes are going to be better in some areas from just their background, but your goal as a CrossFit athlete is just to be okay across the board when compared to elite athletes in all of those columns. Exceptions being like Matt Fraser and Tia Claire Toomey, who are Olympic caliber weightlifters, or like Tia Claire more so, but she's also just a snowflake. You can't compete or compare her to your everyday gym goer, right? I mean, people like, CrossFit does a really good job at like, for instance, like the lower body side of training thing. CrossFitters are the weakest upper body people you will ever see in your entire life. You go to a Globo gym, almost every single person is out lifting a CrossFitter in bench press, shoulder press, lat pull downs, every female. Like, I mean, someone was like, "Oh, I'm doing 40-pound dumbbell bench press. Like, this is super difficult for females." When like I trained ninth grade girls that weighed 115 pounds that could do 50-pound dumbbell bench press. Why is this difficult for someone that's been doing CrossFit for so long? So yeah, I think there's just a couple of those different things
I
going
mean,
on for it. But
that last point you just mentioned, like we could have another 20 minutes talking about
yeah,
like us valuing, and like I'm guilty of it too, us valuing potentially some qualities far too much. And
yeah,
why are we not just valuing just like raw strength? Things like you just said, a lat
yeah,
pull down, a dumbbell
yeah,
bench press, which is just
yeah,
strict work.
yeah.
That's all it
Strict,
is. And I
strict
think
work.
that's things, but see, yeah, that's a huge conversation. Is like, what are we prioritizing and why are we prioritizing some things more? And yeah, that could be a long conversation.
And I think to go back to your GPP because I had a couple notes for something I wanted to add into that. I think a lot of people's CrossFit training would be 100% almost complete if all of them took a day out of the gym or 2 days out of the gym and went and played a sport. Pick up kickball, recreational basketball, something like that. Because once again, that is a methodology from CrossFit that is completely gone. Everyone has completely removed themselves from learning new sports and just stays in the box in the gym, gets really good at fitness, and then doesn't have those other qualities. Because if you're playing basketball, if you're playing kickball, if you're doing all those other things, you're working on the forefoot for sprinting, for jumping. You're getting low dose, intense sprints from basketball and kickball and things like that. And so I think if people actually, like I said, if CrossFit endorsed their own methodology of like, hey, go out and learn a new sport. I did that in my own gym. On Wednesdays, I made people play like spike ball and basketball. And then if they missed a shot or whatever, I would make them go like run to get their sweat in or whatever. And they loved it. And a lot of people wouldn't love it because there's a lot of people that are really good at fitness but suck at sports. And, they got to figure that out. So,
Yeah, I am most guilty out of anyone in this world. Is one of my favorite things is when someone asks me, "So what do you do for fun?" I'm like, I sit in a CrossFit gym. I do CrossFit. I don't go out
yeah.
and very rarely. But to your
Yeah.
point, you're 100% right. Like, get out in space, get out in an
Mm.
environment when you don't know which direction you're going to have to move. It's extremely
Yeah.
healthy for you. I agree. But that's one of those things. It's like, don't do it. I never get the saying right. Don't do as I do as I say, or something. Whatever.
Yeah. Whatever it is. I get what you're saying with it, but yeah. So,
All right. Dope. Good conversation. Michael, you had some good
yeah, I
insight.
appreciate it.
I think people are going to love it. I'll be tagging you on Instagram. Go
Sure.
look at his Instagram. Hopefully he'll be back. But if you watch this video, it'd be of great help if you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Spotify. Peace.